speaking. But there's a press conference, a presser basically being put together by the minority. They are speaking now. We would like to catch snippets of that from Parliament.
Qualified to get Ghana card. But as we speak, less than 2,000 people have Ghana card in Adaklu because they feel that many of the people in Adaklu will vote against NPP. So the best thing to do is to disenfranchise them. It will not happen. I call on people of this country to send a message to NPP. Whatever you do, you have lost this election. No amount of propaganda and lies will save you. Thank you very much.
Guys.
Yeah, go on.
Good afternoon. Let me start by saying that Ajegong, things fall apart. Things fall apart in the sense that credibility matters a lot in economic management. Forecasting is everything. The 2022 budget, I recall when it was read first in November last year, got investors very jittery, and as a result, they started exiting Ghana's market. Today, the minister's media review of the 2022 budget is worse. The media review document that he just presented is nothing but empty. Nothing but empty. We have a country that is in crisis economically. Everything in this country is not working. Yet the minister responsible for finance appeared before us and said nothing. He failed to address the very concerns of the ordinary Ghanaian. Today, he comes here once again only to tell us that he has missed all the targets he set in the 2022 budget. Every one of them, he could not achieve it. Everyone, he has missed them. Only for him to propose target that he's going to miss again in the year 2022 by the end of the year. For example, the Bank of Ghana reported to us that in the first half of the year 2022, June, the fiscal deficit is approximately 6%. Only for the Minister of Finance, who has already done first half of the year fiscal deficit almost 6%, to tell us that by the end of the year, the fiscal deficit will be 6% again. How possible? How possible? At the time that you have revised your revenue down by 3.7 billion Ghana cedis, you have only cut expenditure by 1.8 billion Ghana cedis. So in total, the net effect is that you are increasing your fiscal deficit by 2 billion. Yet he's telling us that the fiscal deficit is coming down. How can this be possible? Again, our minister responsible for finance informed all of us that the GDP growth for the year 2022 has been revised from 5.8% to 3.7%. I beg to say, even the 3.7%, he cannot achieve it. Fitch has just informed us that the GDP growth for the year 2022 will be 2.5%, the worst ever in the history of Ghana. Colleagues, things fall apart.
Well, Dr. Kasialato Forson, the ranking member of the Finance Committee of Parliament, sharing some thoughts. He started with Ajegong and things fall apart. He was just making mention of that latest Fitch downgrade. What we know is 2.6%. He just said 2.5%. But he is saying, gentlemen, that basically even that revised GDP growth target of 3.7% is not going to materialize. Let's reconnect with Dr. Ato Forson.
You get public buy-in. It's a missed opportunity. The minister has missed an opportunity to tell the true state of Ghanaian economy to the people of Ghana, for all of us to accept it and get a buy-in. Unfortunately, we only heard propaganda and things that are not possible, only for him to report to us that he has missed every target and is going to even miss more, and set unrealistic target that is going to drive this country further into the ditch. This government, all what they know to do most is that they think that every problem must be confronted with a debt. I call it one problem, one debt. One problem, one loan. One P, one L. That is what this government is practicing. Today, our public debt is in excess of 400 billion Ghana cedis. Yet the minister in this document failed to talk about public debt. he failed to talk to us that Ghana is not in a position to be able to repay our debt. I was thinking that he will use this opportunity to address the issue of debt restructuring. Colleagues, let me be honest with you. Our country is now highly indebted middle-income country, HIMIC. Our position is worse than the HIPIC days. That is where we are. I expected the minister to be truthful, candid, and be able to confront the problem head-on. But unfortunately, what we witnessed today is nothing but incompetence. We've seen incompetence at the highest level. I've never seen anything like this since I became Ghanaian. Unfortunately, our country is in bad hands. The Ghanaian economy is in a bad way, but I have not seen a government ready enough to deal with the situation. I call on His Excellency the President to conduct an immediate reshuffle so that this economy will be back to proper hands. I'm saying this not because I'm an opposition MP, but I'm saying this because I'm a Ghanaian first. And I care about the direction this country is going. If the country gets worse, it affects all of us, not only NDC or MPP. It affects all of us. So please, let's get serious here. This is people's pocket. The economy is your livelihood. The economy is your pocket. It's your child's future, and we cannot be toiling with it. This government has shown that they are not ready to govern. And I want to say that if they are not ready, they should hand over the government to some of us that is ready to deal with the situation. We can assure you that if given the opportunity, we'll confront the problem head on and take Ghana back to prosperity. We've done it again before, and we'll do it again. What I've seen today is sad. I'm saddened as a Ghanaian because it's a big missed opportunity. Don't be surprised that by the close of today, our bonds in the international market will start getting worse once again, because this piece of paper needs to be flushed in the dustbin immediately. We need to shred it into pieces because it is empty and useless. Thank you.
Yes. We want to come.
Let me. Okay.
No. I wanted to address.
Okay.
Addition is not subtraction.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think my ranking has explained a lot of the concerns that we have with this media review. First of all, I want those of you who have access to the Public Financial Management Act to go and read Section 28 and be abreast with what he was required to come and do. He was required to come and tell us how the budget has performed as at this time, by June, the 6 months. What is the total revenue you have raised? And then give us a table of the various revenue yields that led to that total. He is supposed to give us the total expenditures to date, so we know what the deficit is and we know what the primary balance is, but also to tell us the development within the real sector, the banking sector, the capital markets, and all other things that impact our lives. He did not tell us how his budget has performed to date. He basically just went ahead to tell us what he's projecting by the end of the year. That is not the requirement of a media review. The requirement of a media review is that you must tell us budget performance as at date. Now, I want you to take your time and look through his document. The minister tells you that his GDP is not performing, and that the GDP performance is projected to grow at 3.7% from 5.8%. What it means is that we are not doing well. Is that not the case? The minister says that his revenue will decline from 100 billion to 96 billion. Is that not what he said? The minister says that he is providing COLA of 15% on his wage bill, which gives you 4.6 billion. The minister says that his interest payment has gone up from 37 billion to 41 billion. That is an additional almost 3.8 billion. When you put these numbers together, the drop in revenue, which is a shortfall to be filled, the increase in interest payment of about 3.8 billion, the increase in COLA of about 4.6 billion, the minister is adding exactly 12 billion to his expenditure. And yet he tells you that he will still stay within the appropriation. Now you notice that the appropriation, he says it moves from 137 billion to 135 billion. Let's grant that that 2 billion is the 30% he's cutting in expenditure. You will notice that he would have now increased the deficit from the 38 billion he's quoting to about 49 billion if you add the figures that are quoted earlier of about 12 billion, which is about 50 billion. So if you add the 12 billion to his 38, you are getting about 50 billion. Subtract his 2% he's cutting from expenditure, and you are getting a deficit of about 48, 49 billion. So clearly the man was coming to ask for more money. So you notice that the original order paper came by a motion, and that motion was that he was going to request for a supplementary estimate. When he didn't like the mood of the House, he went and brought an addendum to say that he's now coming by a statement because he doesn't need money. But the numbers I'm giving you shows that he is spending close to 12 billion in excess of what we approved earlier. So the original intention is what it is, that the minister is going to spend more than appropriation. Even though he's spending more by appropriation, he says tell you that his deficit will rather decline from 7.4 to 6.6. You know how he did that? He came and then revised the GDP. The GDP that is declining by 5.7 to about 3.7, he revised it to 592 billion from 500 billion. You know why he did that? When you revise the GDP, it means that whatever figure that sits on the GDP, because the GDP is now bigger, that figure will become smaller. So he's able to get a deficit of 6.6% by artificially cooking a GDP that doesn't exist. You see, when I tell you that that man is a danger to us, you think that it is personal. No serious ethical person will do what he came to do. That you are cooking your numbers, you are adding to the expenditure, your revenues are not performing, your expenditures are going up because your interest payment is more. You are paying more COLA. As a matter of fact, your economy is not performing because the GDP is struggling, but artificially you are able to get a higher GDP to suppress the deficit. You are able to cut off all the additional expenditures to suppress the deficit. So Ken Ofori-Atta is digging the grave to go to jail tomorrow because we will properly audit these numbers. And it will show that today, what he came to do today was what he originally put on the order paper, which was to ask for more money to spend. But he didn't have the confidence to do that. 2, he says the IMF arrived in this country on a particular date and assessed our economy. Why? How did the IMF arrive? You invited them. Is that not the case? Is it difficult to tell Ghanaians that we call the IMF to come? He doesn't want to say that. He says that the IMF arrived in this country on what? On what? Is it Article 4 review? Or is it a surveillance visit? It is an emergency call, an SOS call, that they should come and save you because you cannot manage the economy. That is what it is. Now, did you hear anything on your banking and financial sector? Did he tell you anything about your banking and financial sector? Did he tell you anything about the capital markets? No. As we speak today, just last week, he had maturities of about 4.9 billion. He went on the market, he got only 1.1 billion. I don't know how he's going to pay the balance of almost 3.8 billion Ghana cedis. It is becoming clear that a man who cannot borrow in Ghana, he cannot borrow from abroad, his revenues are not performing, is able to get money to spend a lot of money. Only one thing is happening. The Bank of Ghana is printing money and throwing those monies at the government. That is illegal, it's preposterous, and we will do everything to get to the bottom of that matter. But as it is today, nobody listening to the finance minister today will have confidence that the country is going forward. He is still there talking about Ghana Cares or Batampa. Do you know what that is? Do you know what that is? He's been saying it for 3 years now. Even their MPs don't know what is Ghana Cares. Were you not here when the majority leader was complaining that even MPs and ministers don't know this Ghana Cares? You say enhanced domestic program. What animal is that? They are doing your DSA. You are supposed to be engaging Ghanaians to get us along to develop a program to go to the IMF and have a negotiation. As we speak today, have we heard of any stakeholder engagement? The man is still roaming around and speaking big English. I don't know, today, fortunately, I didn't hear him quote the Bible. But somebody had hinted me that he was late in coming because he was looking for his white captain. And after getting that, he was now looking for verses of the Bible. Today, he didn't get it, so we didn't hear a lot of it. But our country is messed. The capital markets will rattle on account of this. And I'm sure our development partners were shocked that the minister was going to ask for more money in a supplementary estimate. Because he was getting calls to answer those questions, he ran away. But you also heard that he didn't mention the reserves. Did you hear the reserves? Now today I want to tell you that reserves that the Bank of Ghana cooked and released last Friday after our press conference is of no consequence. The Minister for Finance said the reserve moved from 9 billion to 3 billion. Is that not it? Have they ever achieved a net international reserve of 9 billion before? It's gross. So if the minister said 9 billion to 3 billion, he was referring to gross international reserves. So the 7.6 billion gross international reserve cooked by the governor is in excess of $4.6 billion, which doesn't exist in the Bank of Ghana. So ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow we will start the debate. But suffice it to mean that our country is doomed, and I want to repeat my call on the president to sack Ken Ofori-Atta if he will not resign voluntarily. Thank you very much.
All right, so Dr. Kassia Lato-Forson speaking, now Isaac Adongo. We also saw Kwabena Mintah-Kandor lurking in the background. He didn't get to speak. It's interesting, just to let you know, after we reconnect with Seth Tekpe, we've seen some nurses around as well. We'll try to interact with them. They were picketing at Parliament earlier in the day, nurses from the 2019 batch. But back to you, Mr. Tekpe. Thank you so much for your patience.
No, you're welcome. I think those were very informative because some of them were exactly where I started, my intervention. I did mention that we were not the statement did not seem to send any signal to the capital markets, considering that the minister was concerned with lack of access, and he was talking about domestic, turning to domestic financing, which we know is already has a problem. I also mentioned that it did not send a signal, not just to the IMF. Remember, when you are negotiating, you have the World Bank, African Development Bank, development partners, and others at the table. That is what it has always been since Dr. Bochu's, structural adjustment program time. No signal seems to have been sent because the fund mission that came, and Honorable Adongo is right, came for fact finding. You can go to the release that they made when they came in to update their data. It wasn't to assess the economy. Assessment of the economy comes in Article 4 or surveillance or in a program. So if anybody wants to know the true state of the economy, I recommend, the Article 4 that was done in 2021, which raised a number of issues which have not been answered. For example, when a minister went back to tell us about the 2021, figures, you could see that he was talking about debt below 80%, deficit, below even the 11%, which was, in that budget. Frankly speaking, our debt at the end of last year was above 80%. Our deficit, adjusted for bailouts and arrears, is significantly higher. And in Article 4, it is projected our deficit could be as high as 17.5% as of last year. We are not hearing.
Mr. Tekpa, just to clarify, Article 4 of what?
IMF Article 4, 2021.
Okay.
Which was conducted, which was conducted and released last year, July. I entreat everybody to read it. So the fund knew what they were coming to update. Another example, there was no COVID audit when they did the 2021, so it's not new. The other, major example which, I like to give is that energy sector arrears, which we call the bailout. The reconciliation, the last time the reconciliation was done, which was given to the fund, was in 2018. So these are the issues which the fund came to update, in preparation, for a negotiation. It didn't constitute an assessment at all. But let me move on. The minister seems to have sent a no compromise, on free SHS. The fact is that my position remains the same since 2017. Free SHS in its current unfettered form is not sustainable. And I think the evidence is coming from head teachers. There's evidence is coming from, we saw the student nurses who were struggling for food that was going around. We saw head teachers saying that they are going to impose, fees, then they are silenced. We saw the reaction is coming. It's coming all over. We have been sustaining it, through, debt, borrowing heavily, average of 2 billion or more. In fact, if you want a concrete evidence, you can go to the parliamentary papers for the 2019 bond. 2.2 billion Ghana cedis of that bond was used to support recurrent free SHS, in addition to capping and, all the others. So we should be asking ourselves as Ghanaians, it's not the fund that's asking us to do it, whether we are able to finance the free SHS. I think it is quite obvious. Let me run through quickly a couple of specific points. To my colleague, on the panel, the upfront VAT is nothing more than extending the withholding VAT scheme to the import, VAT arena. That currently it is to the import arena. Currently it is on domestic, withholding. What it means is that if you are not registered, those who are not registered for VAT are going to pay, withholding tax, at what rate? Withholding VAT, which is mimicking the income tax withholding that customs collects on behalf of the domestic tax, division, revenue tax division. So we are going to extend the same thing. But remember that, when you import, it doesn't matter whether you are registered or not registered, you pay the import VAT. So is this going to be in addition? Because the import VAT is not dependent on your registration. The import VAT is in the tariff and everybody pays once you bring in and the goods are taxable. So this is going to be in addition, to that. Mind you, these VAT registered taxpayers who are not registered for VAT are already imports. Many of them are caught in the VAT flat rate scheme, which is in existence. So we are just seeing a complete distortion, or we are going to see a complete distortion.
You're talking about the standard rate.
That's even the presumptive tax. When you talk about the standard rate at import, yes, they pay at import, but they cannot, because they are not registered, they cannot claim input tax credit or refund. So already that is cascading, as we say, in VAT. In addition, you are going to impose a withholding, and they are not registered. Many of them who are not registered for import purposes, and I hope that if this policy is going to be implemented, then the registrations for the VAT flat rate scheme should be given to customs so that they don't, pay, withholding tax upfront, or they are giving the imputed credit. Well, nonetheless, we would wait for the technical notes, from GRA so that we can do justice. But this is my, interpretation. Tax amnesty, like many measures, 5 years. We haven't seen a report on it. And we know that tax amnesty, yes, it helps. taxpayers to come clean, but it also sends a bad signal, to taxpayers who are paying their taxes duly. They are paid duly, and then those who are not paying are being rewarded. And the study is there that it has not really made an impact, in many countries. I have said before that the property, tax, which the central government is eyeing, has always been an MMDA tax since colonial era. The central government has never taken a portion of that. Now remember, the central government is capping the DACF, and the central government is now going to take a share, in the name of VRA collecting property taxes from the same, MMDAs that have a cap, on the DACF, and the releases are not even going. If GRA is going to collect, the tax, fair enough. We were considering that the same property, particularly commercial property, attracts rent tax and is the same basis. They should collect and maybe get an administrative fee. But I think the government has never told us what rates they're going to take. We haven't seen any legislation because this is in the MMDA Act, and therefore Municipal Authorities Act, MMDA, Local Government, Act, and it will require an amendment. Otherwise, we are going to see a replay, of the Kayaye tax, which was announced with all fanfare, but there were no resolutions from the assemblies. I'm saying that because I've been an assembly member anyway. It's one of my, as a government appointee, so I know the processes, quite well. Let me touch on e-levy. And if you permit me, I will pause after this, so I don't take too much time. But if you permit me quickly, I will share. Oh, well, okay. If you can enable me, I can show you the list of levies that we have currently on our books.
Okay, so Mr.
The list of
Tekwe, this is what I want you to do. I'll be wrapping with you in the next 4 minutes. So I want you, maybe you can use 2 minutes to give us that list. Then my final bit I want you to look at, are you hopeful at all as far as this mid-year budget review is concerned? Of course, we didn't get any details on the e-levy, how much we're raking in and all of that. So how hopeful are you? I mean, how bad is it? And then you can make the other points that you want to make. So within the next 3 to 4 minutes, you can encapsulate both of them.
Yes, okay. Could you allow sharing so I could share it quickly? But whilst we are doing that.
Okay, so my technical team will allow sharing. So Mr. Tekwe can actually share what he wants, put it online, and we can see. And we'll take it from there. But you can start making your. Yes, we've allowed that, Mr. Tekwe.
Yes, okay. I'm not. Let me say that I'm not too optimistic because, as I indicated, this is Ghana is in a very serious situation, and one would have thought that we missed an opportunity to send the signals, that we are quite serious, in negotiating with the fund and in sending signals to the capital markets. These are the levies that we have on our books, right? As at the last budget. So you have the national, this was supposed to be arrears, the first one. Then you have the National Fiscal Stabilization Levy, which should have ended, in 2017. That's the yellow mark that I have there. FinSec cleanup levy. The blue tells you when they were implemented. Then you have the petroleum tax levies introduced in 2016, which were part of excise. You have the road fund, enhanced road fund levy, which should have been part, of ESLA and should have gone away, including the enhanced energy. You have straight levies, NHIL. You have straight levies. Get fund. You have e-levy, which is there and is just coming in. You have a COVID health levy. You have the yield from capping, which is nothing more than a levy, as I said, of the statutory funds. And earlier in the morning, there was a discussion on IGFs. All those IGFs are subject to capping, for our information. You have a luxury vehicle, levy. You have an energy debt. These are the ESLA levies that should have gone away. Energy debt recovery levy, price stabilization and recovery levy, debtor fund levy, pollution and sanitation levy. And you can see from what I'm displaying that, in fact, I have the same thing, okay, that is it. This is in percentage of GDP. And you can see that levies used to collect, to generate, 0.1%. And that's because they were temporary. And you can see that the fiscal stabilization.
Mr. Tekpe, so unfortunately,
yes.
I'm loving what you're doing, but we have a minute more to go on
yes,
what you're doing.
Yeah,
so
give
us just one more minute.
Yes, I'm almost done.
All right.
So you can see that even inclusive of the e-levy,
right,
and all that has been said about it, it is giving us average 4.5%. That is what it is going to give us into the medium term. This is not, something which we can rely on, for negotiating an IMF program. I think we need significant, reforms. We miss that opportunity, such as we had in the homegrown policy, substantive sector policies, energy sector, where the arrears are so significant. The fund has asked for its inclusion. Arrears, the fund, my last point, the fund calculates arrears to be in excess of 2.6%. If you add it to the 0.4, very paltry that we have amount, that means that arrears alone are about 3%, of GDP, and that was before wages and other, COLA and others were calculated. So I'm afraid, I don't think that we are getting a transparent picture, of what is going on, with the economy. Off-budget items, which are in the Article 4, 2021, I urge, the experts to read it for themselves, and then maybe you can organize a discussion so that Ghanaians, will know, will have an idea of what is in that document.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Tekpe, and thank you so much for joining the conversation and sharing your thoughts. Seth Tekpe, former finance minister. I'll come now to Julius. You have the final comments. I know you have quite a lot to dilate on, so let's do some 3.5 minutes and wrap up the conversation.
Thank you very much. So far as a business association, looking at the details of the budget, we have mixed reaction in that, given your targets and now you have to revise them downwards, sends the signal that things are not all that too well. And so that calls for the need to actually rethink and see how we put in place measures to ensure that these revised targets are actually achieved. The minister made mention that he wants us to return to pre-COVID-19 situation in less than 2.5 years or 3 years. And that would require that we need to do substantive work. What we learned about COVID is that it brought about supply chain disruptions. Now that we are trying to go post-COVID, what are the mechanisms or what are the strategies that have been put in place to ensure that manufacturers or industries, their input supplies are not going to be disrupted? At the moment, I actually didn't hear that in the budget. I also didn't hear of what your contribution the Planting for Food and Jobs had on those that are into the agribusiness sector. For instance, we know that your fertilizers are going to be an issue going forward. What are the policies in place to ensure that your farmers have adequate fertilizers, have adequate input supplies to ensure that food security doesn't become an issue? Because if you take the issue of Sri Lanka and also India, they are mainly focused on trying to ensure that food security is addressed. I think this morning I read that flour prices are actually dropping, but this may be temporarily. But what are we putting in place to ensure that the issues of food is also addressed? The other thing that I also find exciting is the Development Bank Ghana, which is in there to ensure that SMEs have access to long-term funds.
Right.
And so we are actually excited about it, and we hope that these funds go in to build the capacities of our SMEs to scale up their operations and then be able to grow. We are also looking at the situation where investment in your strategic sectors are also well done. And so he made mention of the agricultural value chains. And so we are excited to see to what extent is this going to improve the food security situation in the country. How is it also going to connect to the various industries? Because industries feed on each other. And so if this is the place where we have to go to support Ghana's industrialization drive here through value chains, then we need to spend more resources over there.
Gilbert, you were asking for a minute. I'll give you 30 seconds. Just 30 seconds, quickly.
Just to wrap up by saying that the tax amnesty, in my opinion, is a very good move. I think that businesses should take advantage of this to clean their books. I think that it's just a good opportunity for them. They shouldn't miss out on this. And I believe that by 31st December, I don't think government may extend it again and you lose out of that opportunity.
It's a whole year of tax amnesty that has been granted, so take advantage. Thank you for joining the conversation. It's been our coverage of the mid-year budget review. And I just want to say that I spoke about the nurses. We'll be getting you interactions with them as they picketed Parliament. We'll be finding out what their core issues are and bringing you that later in subsequent bulletins. But those who joined us for the conversation that we've been having, we had Professor Pepra of Andrews University all the way from the United States. We had Dr. Yahweh Dusa Akwadie of the KNUST. We had Honorable Seth Tekpe, former finance minister. In the studio, we had Julius Bradford Lamptey, head of research and advocacy, Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We also had Gilbert Yerenchi Ado, tax manager, Deloitte Ghana, together with others who joined the conversation. Well, the verdict is out there. What do you think about the statement delivered by Ken Ofori-Atta? We'll be picking your thoughts as we continue with The Pulse with Blessed Sugar. But for now, we take a break. We'll be right back.